Alright, so today we're going to be breaking down Alec Merlino's stroke. Alec is a teammate of mine on Everyman Jack Triathlon. Shout out to them for giving us this beautiful swim cap that you see Alec wearing right here. And Alec lives in Southern California. I live in the Bay Area. I'm not with him on a daily basis. So how do you help someone get better at swimming when you're not with them? Well, a little bit of video analysis requires great communication with athlete and coach. And check Alec out on Instagram. He's a great follow, and he was on Survivor. That's pretty cool. So anyway, first, let's start breaking it down a bit. So this was the first thing that jumps out to me. You can see he starts and boom. Look at that. Look at that pull on that right side. So when we talk about pulling and swimming, and actually I can speed it up till the next one. Boom. Look at, you see how wide that pull is? So when we're swimming, we want to think about a pull that's kind of this half diamond shape. That might be a little bit aggressive. Here. That's kind of where we want to be at with the pull. When you're in this position, you end up engaging. You engage here, you engage your lats and back a little bit more. It's just a more powerful position. I tell people, hey, if you're going to get out of the pool or you're going to push down on my hands, if I hold my hands out, I said push down on them, you're going to push right here, right? You're not going to push way out here. That engages weaker muscles a little bit outside. We want to be here so we can stay connected. So that was the first thing that really jumped out to me. And Alec actually is a decent swimmer. He did 100 fast at the end of practice and went a 58 and in short course yards. And for someone who his swim speed and how fast he swum in like a half type Ironman, I think he should be faster even with this current stroke. So that's something to address, obviously. And when the catch comes wide, when you're doing things not quite right in the top of your stroke, it's hard for the finishing of the stroke to really follow in line. Okay, so now that looks pretty good. You see how his shoulder and his hand are in line? He's nice and tight here. That looks pretty good. So on this side, he begins to pull, comes a little wide, but as he finishes, you can see that he does come into that kind of diamond shape we were talking about, which is good. That's strong. So when the arm's in that position, you see how the hand's flat and the forearms turn. That's like kind of his unit. We never want to be angling our wrist or anything. That's that surface area is wide, and he's using the bi and tri. Triceps are a big muscle in swimming. He's using that to establish himself, pull pass, and you can see that his hip or his hand finishes pretty close outside the back by his hip. Okay, so when we finish our pull in freestyle, we want to be pushing kind of right by our hip, even graze it. I mean, sometimes I'm swimming, I might touch it with my thumb just to know that it's close. So that was the first thing with Alec, and we've been kind of talking about some movements and some drills to get him feeling that catch a little bit happens. But now I see this so much with triathletes, this wide pull, and it's hard to really pinpoint, okay, why are you doing this? To me, it screams that you're not really that comfortable being on your side, so you kind of need this arm out to stabilize you. So maybe it happens a lot when Alec breathes to his right, and when he's breathing to his right, his arm comes way out, kind of stabilizing himself. So to me, maybe a little bit of side kicking, some kicking where he's rotating his shoulders underneath him with his arms, at his side. getting comfortable being on his side, engaging through the trunk and his core, and using his breath to kind of lift him up. So to me, it says he's probably not that comfortable on that side, and it's something to be addressed. So as we keep moving, pretty good. See, you can see on that he came a little wide again. I'll stop it here, just because I know triathletes talk about streamlining, like turns. That's misguided. And I'll tell you why. This streamline position that he has right now, kind of like this, it's that same front of the stroke connection. When we're at the front of our stroke, we want to be connected here. Now, if this is a hard position for you, you need to practice tightening the streamline. So when you enter, we can be connected here. If you're kind of wide out here and then your pole gets wide, I mean, that's a lot of water, coming and kind of slowing you down. So if you see on Alec, kind of in this position, you can see that there's going to be a lot of water coming from this, slowing him down. Okay, so the water's coming here, it's slowing him down here. Now, if he was a little bit tighter, like on this side, he's a little bit better. One other thing in this position, which I'm noticing, is it's a little bit angled like this. So when we extend our catch, I didn't mean to draw that one. When our shoulder comes to, when we reach out, we never want to have our elbow lower than our hand. We kind of always want to be in this position. So you can kind of see he comes in and comes a little bit up with his arm. So that's just wasted movement. I mean, the reason we don't want that happening is because we want to be able to extend and get immediately kind of into our catch. Okay, so now kind of back to the streamlining. That streamline position, I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the worst streamline I've ever seen. But, check out his hands. You can see this. His head's kind of a little bit up. But practicing this tight streamline, inevitably when you're reaching out in front, you'll probably have good connection here, and you'll avoid a little bit of that front drag that we don't really want to see in the pool. And I think it's just way overlooked. A lot of triathlons, there's beach starts, right? You're running into the water. You might need to dolphin dive. Oh, I don't need to practice my starts and walls like I'm a triathlete. Well, there's freaking starts in triathlons. I mean, if I'm racing you and we're dolphin diving 10 times, and my streamline is better than yours, I'm going to gain a little bit on every single dolphin dive, and all of a sudden you're 3 body lengths behind someone just because you have a worse streamline. And maybe you could swim with that person, but they're already gone. I mean, once you lose the draft, it's hard to get it back. So there's all these little things that triathletes say, oh, that's not that important, but they are. The swim, sculling, IM, streamlining, all that stuff. And you can see at this point, I mean, you saw how wide it comes out. But right there, that's pretty in line. I mean, you can see now when it continues, it comes way out. And then you can kind of see how his body, it's a little bit like this in the back. And we really want more of a straighter line when we're swimming. And I'll see a lot of people, you're a little bit disconnected when you kind of have that lower back arch. And if you're not kind of tight in the front and stuff, and that comes wide here, if you come wide here, you might be popping out your hips a little bit, and things tend to, it just doesn't flow like it should. And in the end, this is an art, okay? Everyone's what do they say? Experiment n equals 1. Everyone's unique. That's probably not even how you use that expression. So you kind of got to find, so then you look at that point on his stroke too. Let's go back a sec. Right there. Okay, so this, now you can really see it. So you can really see how the elbow is lower than the hand. So that, to me, says shoulder flexibility is an issue. And swimmers take this for granted. We've been swimming our whole lives. We've got that nice shoulder flexibility. If you haven't been swimming your whole life, and this position is hard, then when you get tired, you're not just going to magically get into this nice streamlined position. You're kind of going to be like this. The elbow might drop. And in this position, there's so much water that can come right here and slow them down. So it's all kind of reducing that frontal drag, and then we can kind of work with what's going on in the bottom of the stroke. And you see how far that hand comes out. I mean, it's not in that diamond shape that we're kind of shooting for. Not too much to see here. I mean, you can see on his pole, you see, I mean, that's just another angle. You see how wide it goes. I mean, right before this, it's out here. I mean, that's just not, it's not engaging, up here through the lats or things like that. So, as I work with Alec, we're going to really try to do a bunch of different movement patterns and address all these little things, kind of deficiencies in the stroke. And what you got to remember is, when we're swimming open water, every little deficiency you have is kind of exacerbated or amplified. In the rougher, in the pool, in a nice flat environment, you're swimming along, all right, you can get away with a few things. When there's more waves and stuff, like, if you bury your head or you're disconnected, there might be a wave hitting you right as you're doing this kind of unconnected front, and that's more water that's going to slow you down. So you'll end up amplifying kind of mistakes that you have, and I think that's why in the rougher conditions, better swimmers have more of an advantage generally, and that's because mistakes are amplified. So people talk about recovery a bit in swimming. I mean, I don't love this hand, but when he enters, it's you can see that this wrist, there is an angle here. So we want to be perfectly straight from elbow to fingertip. Maybe a little angle like this, but we don't want to get in this. I mean, your hand is helping you set the anchor, but the hand is not what's driving the power. I mean, you get the surface area, but it's engaging all this. And if you're kind of angled, you generally won't have as strong of a pull. So on the other side, he does enter. You can kind of see he's a little bit in front of his head. You kind of see that it's direct. His shoulder's here, so we would want him kind of reaching out there. So you'll see as I press play, his hand kind of has to straighten out to that point. But then, because he was kind of here and then straightening out, then he just keeps going, and then that's why he gets wide. Now, it's kind of the chicken or the egg with these things. You can't say, oh, you're doing this because things work. Maybe he'll correct something in his stroke. He'll get there, and something else will get corrected. It's always hard to pinpoint exactly what you do, and it's usually reinforcing little habits through drills, movement patterns, whatever it is, and that's what's going to allow you to change your stroke. I mean, if you think about Alec, he only started swimming a couple years ago, but how many strokes has he taken where her arm comes way out? I mean, tens of thousands, 100,000. You take so many strokes in the lap. So, doing all these little things, and if you're reinforcing, now, the arm swinging recovery, I'm not too worried about that stuff. I mean, as long as, you know, when you're a kid, they'll teach like, oh, finger trip drag, perfectly high elbow. And the reason they do that, because if you have a nice high elbow and your fingertips are here, when you hit the water, you're going to continue straight, right? Now, if you're swinging here and you hit the surface of the water, you're not magically just going to come here. So, you know, fast sprinters these days do straight arm, right? But, you know, a lot of people will kind of come here, and that's okay. The thing is, we usually want, I would say for most people, as long as your hand is below your elbow. So you can see Alec here, he kind of has, well, that's straight, right? So I'd rather see him a little bit more like this, just because when you enter, you're gonna have a better shot to kind of get that straight arm out, like we said. Now, if you're really swinging, that's when you run into trouble. Yeah, and you can see the other side. Yeah, you know, he comes a little bit. That one swings, and he's kind of. It's all fine. Nothing jumps out to me like that's so terrible. What I do like about Alec's stroke is you can tell that he's reaching, you know, like his shoulders up when he's hitting the water. He's up here, and there's a big difference between, you know, having your arm up and having your arm up and really reaching that shoulder. So, you know, that his shoulder flexibility is fine. It's not amazing, but I think a lot of triathletes, you know, they're just swimming and they're just here, like, oh, I'm gonna pull water. It's like, no, your shoulder needs to be incredibly lifted, and when you lift that, it forces engagement through this and hits all of the back muscles. So, you know, there's always drills and things to do and practicing. I mean, the thing about drills is if you half-ass drills once or twice a week, it's just not going to make much of a difference. So you need to be thoughtful in your movements and your movement patterns, and short intervals are your friend. I mean, if you want to get, you know, good aerobics in this, short intervals with short rests, a little quick reset of the stroke. Most professional swimmers, and, you know, fast swimmers in general, yeah, I mean, some of them crank out 400s and things, but they're experienced. They can hold their stroke together. Triathletes can't hold their stroke together, and especially age group triathletes, for more than a 200. Maybe even 100. Probably a 50. Okay, so I'd much rather see someone do 40 50s on 10 seconds rest, quick reset of the stroke, than, you know, 10 200s. You can get fit as heck for an Ironman swim doing 50s. And I'll die on that hill. I mean, the amount of people I see cranking out 1,000-yard repeats or something like this, and even other pros that I see, and it's like, I mean, sure, you guys are experienced and stuff, but you got to be really mindful, because every stroke you take with a bad habit, you're just, you know, you're reinforcing that. So if you really want to make meaningful changes in your stroke, you have to keep the interval short so you can get a quick reset. And look, a 10-second rest in the pool is a lot. If you're on the track doing repeats, you're going to start running the exact same way you finish the rep. But in swimming, for some reason, that 10 seconds, you can really reset, you get vertical for a second, just relax, and then you go in, and we always feel the best off the wall. So I'm really stoked to work with Alec. He's already shown me how much he cares. He's sending me videos every day. We FaceTime multiple times already, and that's what it takes to do something with someone and make meaningful changes. So, you know, keep that in mind if you're looking to improve your swim. And yeah, follow me on Instagram, gharpzorz, Z-O-R-Z, GHARPZORZ. Been putting out some good swim content, and yeah, that's all I got. Much love.